Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Dojo Live. Today is Wednesday, February 3rd, 2021. I am Tulio Sirgusa, broadcasting from Southern California. And today I'm joined by my co-host, Carlos Ponce in Cuernavaca, Mexico. Hi, Carlos. Welcome
Hey,
back.
Tulio. Thank you, Tulio. Appreciate it.
And we also have Matt Perez, who was one of the original people behind Dojo Live. It's great to have him. He's been a guest of our show, and he's welcome to be here. We're looking forward to having you as a co-host, Matt.
Thank you.
And of course, the reason we do this is because of our guest. We are looking forward to speaking with Tatyana Mamut, who is a product innovator and amazing individual to talk about culture, specifically how to create better customer experiences. But before we go into that whole topic, let's get to know you a little bit. Tatyana, kindly introduce yourself. That'd be great.
I am. How about me? Oh, sorry, I'm getting some feedback.
Yeah.
There we go.
So the thing to know about me is that I'm a human-centered product innovator around digital experiences. One of the things that I really believe is, especially today with off-the-shelf technology services like AWS and all the cloud services, a lot of the really hard challenges in building an amazing product that will actually drive a business's growth are fundamentally no longer technological problems, although obviously the technology is very, very important, but they're really human problems. Understanding how the future is changing, how the culture is changing, and what people really want and desire in the future. And so the way that I came to product and having top product leadership roles at companies like Amazon Web Services, Salesforce, and Nextdoor is through anthropology and through understanding how culture shapes what our experiences are of the world and how human expectations are changing globally, and how all the interactions between all the cultures in the world sort of are coming together to kind of create a new future. And of course, technology is at the crux of how we are all building the future and a common global future. It's connecting us more and more, but it also has to be more and more responsive to the human needs and the human differences, that people are experiencing around the world. So that's me. And I was born originally in Eastern Ukraine, came to the United States as a refugee. And that has also shaped my experience, right? Because I understand what it's like to, be not in a very privileged environment or a very privileged context. And I think it's really important to have product leaders, especially at some of the top and biggest platforms, really understand and have that human empathy for everyone globally, not just the people in Silicon Valley. So I'm a change agent on many levels, or trying to be, with how we shape the future of digital technology.
Great. Thanks for the introduction. So let's go right into the topic of conversation today, Carlos. Would you please introduce the topic? We're looking forward to speaking with you, Tatyana.
Absolutely, Tulio. My pleasure. And of course, thanks to our guest, Tatyana, for being with us today. So, Tulio, as you know, probably most companies say they're often customer obsessed, right? But their processes are kind of too often prioritize revenue and competitors. So we're going to be speaking with Tatyana about practical approaches to creating a customer-centric culture and achieving breakthrough successes. So the topic today in that regard is how a customer-centric culture creates great digital experiences. Tatyana, I'd like to ask you, as the first question for today is, why did you choose this particular topic, and why did you think it was relevant for this day and age?
Yeah. So one of the things, I've been very privileged in working at some of the most customer-centric companies, I believe, in the world. So IDEO, which is a global design firm, which really puts human-centered design at the core of its process. So IDEO's worked with companies like Apple and Microsoft to create the fundamental breakthrough product experiences, right, that have driven their success and their growth. And so from, even the 1980s and 1990s, that understanding that if we understand people and understand what their needs are, we can build better technology products, has been at the core of what they've done. The other thing that people sometimes forget is that Amazon and all of its success is based on a core and central principle around customer obsession. And Jeff Bezos has often said, and said very, very frequently when I was there, that in order to be truly customer obsessed, you have to be customer obsessed instead of being revenue obsessed, instead of being competitor obsessed, instead of being product obsessed, right? So that customer obsession needs to be prioritized in order to achieve breakthrough results. And that's really how we drive innovation. What I find, however, is that oftentimes product teams are, filled only with technologists, right? So you have the engineering team, which is technology and deep experts and deep expertise in the technology side, and then you have their partners who are the product team, and they have the same exact skill set. And I find this really counterproductive, and I really have seen how this dynamic really prevents companies from achieving on the product side their goals. Because if we think about what makes a product successful, it is understanding how to achieve not just how to build something well, but also what to build, right? What should we build that will meet the needs of our customers in the best way, and how to sequence the set of features so that we're changing the mental models of people, so that we're changing the daily habits of people to get them to prefer and to use our product over others. And that is really fundamentally the skill set of social science, right? And so to have a product team that's led by a social scientist is an incredible complement to a technology team that's led by an engineer. And then together, right, the technology team and the product team should come up with that incredible intersection of product experiences that are both technically feasible and can be built really well as socially and desirable, and really desirable for the customers, so that you create a great deal of pent-up demand for the product. So this is something that I am very passionate about. This is something that I've seen drive success at companies like Salesforce and Amazon, and something that I think is maybe misunderstood in the tech world today.
So let me, so a couple of things. One is you're from Ukraine, I'm from Cuba. So, we're almost cousins. Okay.
Yes.
And that was one. The other thing is that when we started the company, we fooled around with IT shops. Whoever had money, basically, we took it. And we discovered very quickly that that wasn't a good match for us. Mm-hmm. And it was because at the time, the way we put it was, we want to work with people that want to build products that people love, not that they have to use because you work for me and you're a peon and this, that. And so that everything you said resonates with me, except for the thing about social sciences. When I think of sociology and social scientists and stuff like that, I think of people that are very detached from my reality and making. So what do you mean by social science?
I mean sociology, anthropology, social psychology. I have a PhD in anthropology, and I agree. I think it's a shame that a lot of people who do have degrees in sociology and deep expertise in sociology and anthropology kind of become mostly theoretical physicists, right? So theoretical, like if you study electrical engineering, right, you can go over to the deep end and go super theoretical physics, right? Or you can become more applied, right? And do real things in the world. It's the same thing with social sciences, right? And I do think because not a lot of social scientists see themselves as having a career path into product management and product leadership, they often go to the kind of theoretical physics side of the equation. And what I'm trying to do is trying to help leaders, right, and boards understand that having social scientists actually making decisions about, product trajectory, product strategy can be the key to going from a really good product, right, that's built technically well, to a really great product that creates, organic pent-up demand, that creates product-led growth, and that creates, a possibility for growth for the company. So, that's really where I agree with you, Matt. It's unfortunate that the social sciences aren't usually seen in that way or perceived in that way, but there's a great deal of expertise and knowledge, just like there is in getting an engineering degree on the technical side, around how do people think, what kind of methods do we need to apply in order to get to the deeper needs of people? And how do we actually use that in a context to build better product experiences?
I think we might have lost Matt. Hopefully he'll come back. So Tatyana, I want to follow up to the question, where does the customer start? And just to give you a little more context behind this, is there any correlation between those customer-obsessed companies that do really well by their customers and how they treat the employees or the people within the organization? Any correlation between the two? Do they look at the customer first as the internal employee? I'm just curious what you've seen in terms of any correlation and how that translates into how effectively they execute against this idea of being customer-obsessed.
So companies really think about their culture, and they need to, in order to create a customer-obsessed company. And when I talk about culture, I don't mean things like, benefits packages, or whether they have free lunch or whether they have foosball tables. Those are sort of corporate perks. I mean, what are the principles by which the company operates? What is the operating system of how we communicate within the company, what we value, how we make decisions, right? And who gets compensated and for what kinds of behaviors. So one of the things, again, just going back to Amazon, Amazon is not a touchy-feely company to work for with a lot of perks and benefits, but they really craft a culture very, very, very specifically. They have 14 principles by which they operate every piece of the employee experience, from hiring to promotions to how decisions get made. And those principles really guide, right, what employees are expected to do. So employees have very clear expectations when they come in. They know exactly what kinds of behaviors they're expected to produce, and that is customer-obsessed behaviors, right? And they monitor what employees are thinking about as well. Every day there's a question that you get asked, or at least there was when I worked at Amazon, that you get asked as an employee. And I remember one of the questions that we were asked is, how often do you think about the customer? And the answers were, several times a day, couple of times a week, several times a month, or we don't really think about the customer, right? So they actually put in methods and mechanisms to make sure that the company culture stays customer obsessed. So you absolutely have to think about creating what kinds of people do you want coming in to your company, and how do you want them to operate once they're there.
Go ahead, Matt. We lost you for a second, so I jumped in. I know you have some additional.
Yeah, please. Go ahead, Matt, please. Thank you.
No, what I was going to say, you should look at Social Physics, the book by Sandy Pendleton and Pendleton, I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. And they actually have a math model for how to do the monitoring, as opposed to asking people questions. Because when you ask people, if you know you're in a XYZ company and they ask you any question, the answer is X or Y or Z. That's it. So that's I think it's a more progressive way of doing it, is monitoring what people actually do.
Yes, I completely agree with you. Overall, the best thing to do, and this is why I'm an anthropologist as opposed to other methodologies, is because I like to go in context and observe what people do, not what they say. I'm not interested in surveys. Because people lie, and they often don't really know themselves very well, right? So even if they are not intending to lie, they often misperceive what they actually do. And so I completely agree with you. I think the next trend in the future of work will be going off of survey-based platforms to really drive the employee experience through, the apps that people are using every day. Because we're all distributed right now, I think it's an inflection point that has kind of helped IT and HR teams really step back and think about, wow, basically the employee experience now has become this mediated experience. It's about, what tools do we give our employees? How do we support them, right? How do we make sure that they're actually successful with these tools? Which ones are they using? Should we build or buy a tool, right? All of these different things. And the fact that so much of our work process now is mediated through the computer is an incredible opportunity to not rely on surveys,
Yes.
but to actually just be an anthropologist and observe what are the experiences, what are the daily experiences of your employees like, and what are they using more, what are they using less, and how do we really support them in this mediated experience?
Last week, these guys talked to Beth. I forget her last name.
Porter
from
yeah.
from Riff
Analytics. Yeah.
RIFF, and that's what they do. They came out of the Human Dynamics labs at MIT, and they actually track behavior. So when you're in the meeting, who's talking the most, who's being dominating, as opposed to asking people at the end, who was the dominator and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But yeah, you are an anthropologist, which is a little bit better and more acceptable in my view. Menlo Innovations calls their process an anthropological process, and I got a lot of respect for that.
So one of the things in anthropology, even back in the late 1990s, was a lot of writing around, are we already living in a cyborg age? So are human beings already cyborgs with the types of digital communications that we have, right? And even more so now, right? Post the iPhone, I think we can all agree, right, that a big part of our experience actually goes through the digital world, and how we perceive the world is in many ways predominantly already cyborg in nature. And that understanding of the fact that not to be like weird and be like, we are Borg, you will assimilate, resistance is futile. We're not going in that direction, right? We can go in a different direction, which is that the cyborg possibility is one of actually having better communication and better connection, because computers can process, right, how human dynamics are evolving faster than human beings can process, and they can certainly respond faster than human beings can respond. So the fact that all of us as workers are already cyborgs is actually can turn out to be an amazingly good thing for all of us, right? Because we can actually, our companies can respond to us much better because we're linked directly to them.
Yeah, I used to think monitoring was a dirty word, but it's not.
No.
When monitoring is used, like in China and the Russian stuff like that, to control people, that's one thing. But monitoring is a positive word. When I ask you, how are you? That's monitoring.
That's right. That's right. And it's
when
all about
someone's sick and you check in on them, you're monitoring them. I mean, it's not all just Big Brother watching kind of a thing, right?
I was confused by that for a long time.
Well, when I call, you're absolutely right. When I call my parents, I'm monitoring them, right? I'm checking in on them because I would like to best respond to what they need, right? And you can't respond to what people need if you don't have any data, right? Monitoring is just the ability, right, to get good data about what people who rely on you need from you.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of people misinterpret that as loss of liberty, which is then creates all kinds of conspiracy theories. It's really sad that the true meaning of it gets lost. Now, I just want to go back a little bit to the topic where you said most companies say they're customer obsessed, but their processes too often prioritize revenue and competitors.
Yep.
So in your experience, what happens when that disconnect is a reality, right? You've got a company that wants to serve customers really well, has a whole message around it, has a whole approach and process built in, but then the way it treats its people, the way it handles its own business internally is far from actually creating a good employee experience, as you mentioned. So how do you bridge the gap of when this occurs? And, how do you shed light on it to those executives who are just really paying lip service to this idea of being customer obsessed versus those who are actually living it? What's worked for you to kind of like, hey guys, we're disconnected here? How does someone sort of look at that and make that change?
Yeah. I mean, it really comes down to leadership, to be quite honest. Everything, the culture of a company is primarily driven through what anthropologists call mimesis or mimicry, which is people are very incentivized to get ahead and behave in the way that their leaders behave, right? So if the leader is constantly prioritizing customer experiences and focusing on the customer, then that trickles down very quickly. But if the leader comes into meetings and all they want to do is review the revenue charts and all they want to do is talk about the fact that a competitor is doing something, then that is very quickly picked up on by, the rest of the team. And regardless of what is in your, company values, regardless of what your processes are on paper, the behaviors of the leader are the primary thing that drives things. So one of the things that at IDEO, in our practice around organizational design, what we did was we had a whole, work stream around coaching the leaders and how to shift, especially when you have an innovation project. What kinds of questions should you be asking of your teams if you want to be an innovative, customer-obsessed leader? Versus other questions. So some of the do's and don'ts that we put out there were, don't ask your team, especially early on in innovation projects, what is the ROI on this? Or when do you think we will break even on this, right? Going immediately when an idea is new and nascent and when you're trying to flesh out an idea, going immediately to the ROI or financial questions is not the right thing. The other thing that's not the right thing is asking, how does this compare with our competitors, features and functionality? Again, you're trying to focus on the customer in the initial phases of the innovation project. And so you're really in the early phases of build out. And so you're really trying to focus in on not how will we respond to competitive pressure, which is a go-to-market question, right? You're really trying to focus on the product experience that we're developing. So the kind of questions you do want to ask are, how many customers did you talk to? What kind of customer needs or jobs to be done did you discover? Were there any counterintuitive insights or insights that really challenge our historical point of view as a customer, as a business, right? And so those are the types of questions that you want to be asking as a leader, not the ROI questions, not the financial questions and not the competitive questions. So one of the things that, as a product leader, I do when I come into organizations is I like to institute the PRFAQ process instead of a PRD or MRD process. So what are those letters mean? So the PRD is a product requirements document. It usually is a document that product managers write in organizations that are very product obsessed or technology obsessed. A PRD usually outlines what are the features and functionality and technical requirements of a particular new product that we want to build. Other teams, other product managers write MRDs, market requirements documents. And those documents focus on competitors, on market dynamics, and market opportunity sizing. Those are competitor obsessed documents. What I like to have my product teams write are PRFAQs, press release and frequently asked questions. And this is most commonly popularized at Amazon. And the reason why Amazon product managers write PRFAQs is because they want to know before they fund a product or an experience, why will the customer care? What's going to make this worthwhile for a customer to read about in a newspaper, right? Why would this actually make it to the level of a press release? And why would customers care? And then what kinds of frequently asked questions will customers have about this feature or about this product? So the PRFAQ gets product managers out of thinking about the technology and the technical requirements or the competitors and the market opportunity, and into really creating a product that speaks directly to the customer. So that's one way to do it.
Nice. Matt, I think you have a question. Carlos, and then after you guys, we got one from the audience.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The question, when you said leaders, that a lot of emphasis on the leaders, and that in Cora, Mexico, we don't have any leaders. We're bossless, no titles, no anything. But there is a culture. It wasn't designed as much as it emerged, and so it's one of people learning from each other and stuff like that. So how would you do it in that environment? How would you?
So
Yes.
So here's my challenge back to you. There may not be a hierarchy of authority through title, but
Right.
there's almost always a hierarchy of authority or through reputation or moral authority. There are some people in the organization who are perceived as leaders because they have a better reputation. People look up to them and they have more of a moral authority. So as an anthropologist, I can tell you there are no statusless human societies.
Right.
There may be societies where there isn't, a king or a queen or a CEO, right? There may be cultures where there's nobody with the title, right? But the moral authority, right? The leadership, all human organizations have leaders, and it's really identifying those people that other people want to be like and look up to within an organization, and that are successful in the organization, right? Who, at some point, everybody kind of knows who gets paid more or less, or they have a hunch of who gets paid more or less, and so it's those people.
We publish those numbers. So
yeah. So everybody knows, right? And so it's those people, right, who have the moral authority that are the leaders in that type of situation.
Yeah, that's a lot more
agree?
fluid. Yeah, I completely agree that there's no flat. People would say, "Oh, you guys are flat." It's like, no, we're not flat. But it's very fluid. It changes all the time.
Yeah.
And there are people that you go for certain things, and there are people that have a more established voice than other folks. But then somebody just emerges out of the blue, and there's no beating them.
Yeah.
So anyways, we found ways of letting that voice go out and stuff like that without anybody having to decide, oh, you speak and you don't, or you have weight and you don't.
But as human beings, we often pick up on who has power in a room, and we have high situational awareness. So even if nobody is saying you speak and you speak, we self-organize based on status and authority.
Right.
Right?
It's a huge difference when the power has been given to someone by title and through force, basically, and someone who is willing to serve others and automatically gets sort of followed because they're willing to serve, and that person can step back and someone else can step in for other things. So that's a very different dynamic that we've experienced here in terms of that model where no one's sort of respected because they have to respect them because they have a title. It's more like who's willing to serve whom. Carlos, I think you have a question. We're coming up on time. You have a question, and I want to get to the audience if you don't mind. Yeah. We have one more.
Yeah, actually, there's another question here internally from the audience, and I'm just going to read it back to you, Tatyana, and then you can respond accordingly. Okay. The question is, how has COVID affected software companies in their customer experience during the forced digital transformation or adoption process or pivoting that has been going on worldwide?
Yeah. So it's affected, our whole world, really. It's affected tech companies a lot less because they were already kind of primarily focused on digital experiences. At the same time, I've seen, companies, from, that have a large retail presence or a large, on the ground footprint, really have to become digital first, which I think is an incredible opportunity and transformative moment. And I've seen, I serve on the board of a company called User Testing, which is an amazing product and tool. I've used it in like every job I've ever had, at IDEO, at Salesforce, at Amazon, and at Nextdoor. And what that tool has allowed companies to do is to speed up their digital transformation very quickly by really testing very, very, and experimenting around, digital, how to bring their core value proposition and their core products, how to bring them into digital spaces, right? And also how to bring them into hybrid spaces. So, if you order, something online from, say, Walmart, right, and you want to pick it up at curbside pickup, what should that workflow look like, right? What should we do? What should we provide to customers? And there's a lot of, great processes and methodologies to help companies sort of jumpstart their digital transformation. And again, the world is never going to go back to what it was like before COVID. And that is a great opportunity and an impetus, right, for that digital transformation. But also, it's not going to look exactly like it looked in COVID. So we're going to have another moment of kind of creative destruction, right, where we have to think about, what does the hybrid experience look like? What does a hybrid model of online and offline interactions look like? What do people desire? What do people like? How do we experiment very quickly with those different experiences and different products that we can provide? So I think it's terrible that we're all locked in our houses, of course, but it's also a great opportunity to drive transformation and kind of get into really kind of creative destruction and reemergence moments and experiences. It's a really great time for people who are really creative.
Great. So Tatyana, we're going to break with tradition today, go a little longer, maybe old school style when we used to have the show for an hour. We won't go a full hour, but we'll go a little longer because we do have some more questions, and this is a great topic. One of the questions came in from the audience is, leader behavior. Is this something you can teach, or is this something you're born with?
I would say it is probably a mix of the two. I think that there are, even from an early age, I observe my young children. There are some people who really like being out front, who really like, kind of being, the authority figure. And there are some who really like to follow and really like to be part of a team. And again, it's leaders can come from either one of these, right? It's all about, again, like moral authority and who do people want to be like. But I think it's partly, ingrained in people. But most of it is really, learned. And it's really about how people lean in with curiosity, with empathy. It's a lot of different skills that you can not just learn along the way, but you should look to role models that you love and start to, again, emulate them and start to be like them. That's always what I've done. I've always tried to be in organizations where I have, leaders there where I say, I want to be like those folks, right? Because that is the best, in many ways, learning experience, to actually experience what a leadership style is and to start to emulate it from another person. So that would be my answer there. But also just remember that leadership is also friendship. I think we don't give friendship enough credit in our work environments. When we really care about people as friends, oftentimes those are the most meaningful conversations and you get the most interesting work done. So, that's another piece that I really think is missing out of leadership, like how to be a really good friend to people that you work with, right? What does that mean? What does that look like? And how do you show up and build those authentic experiences together?
Yeah, that resonates a lot for me. I spent almost a decade in men's circles, and I can attest that leadership can be learned by learning to not be so obsessed and actually learning to care for others, which requires being a friend. So we have we're up on time. Obviously, we're over time. Any last words of wisdom you'd like to share with us? If people want to find you, want to engage with you, want to hire you, how can they find you?
The best place is on LinkedIn. I'm T Mamut, or I'm kind of the only Tatyana Mamut on the interwebs, as far as I can tell. So I'm very, very easy to find. And I'm also on Twitter and Clubhouse and all of those places. But overall, I would just encourage people to focus on what is the opportunity of technology, not just for technology, but for humanity, right? We have, as we all know, a lot of different crises kind of coming together, and we're on many, many, many inflection points, and we are creating the future. Those of us who are in tech are creating the global future, and we have a responsibility to think about the humans that we're impacting first, right? And these are, the humans that we live with. We are those humans, and they're going to be our children and our children's children. So I would really encourage everyone to really, focus on the human experience, not just in the short term, but also in the long term, in their everyday work.
Tatyana, it's been great to have you as our guest today. Just stay with us for a few minutes as we go off the air. But before we do, Carlos, do we have any other show coming up this week?
No, not this week, Tulio. We're, of course, as you know, we have the next one on Monday, which is the recap show. And then there's next week's shows. And I like to just briefly announce them, if I may.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. The next one after the recap, that's on Tuesday. We're going to be speaking with Yaniv Sarig. He is the co-founder and CEO of Mohawk Group Holdings, which is a company that's in the NASDAQ index, by the way. So should be interesting. It's a technology company with a very nice offering. I'm not going to give you any advances on that because I want to have you on the lookout for that. And then on Thursday, we're going to be speaking with Hugo Brown, and he is, just bear with me for 1 second. I had it right here, folks, so please, this gets crazy. Hugo Brown is that he's speaking with Hugo Brown on the topic of it. I do know for a fact he hasn't sent me the topic yet, but I do know it's about artificial intelligence. And so it'll be all there on the website, folks. So just stay tuned for all these great, awesome Dojo Live interviews. And I'm sorry if I get this all caught up and running, but this is how it's going these days. Yeah,
we'll re-announce it on Monday.
We'll announce it on Monday. Yeah. Please.
One final thing before we go. We were talking earlier about how we use Clubhouse with Dojo Live. So if you guys have some ideas, drop us a note. Just drop a note. Hey guys, you should do this. You should do that. We'd love to hear, because we want to figure out how we can incorporate having extended conversations with more than just the four squares here with folks on Clubhouse. So just drop us a note. We are very curious. And until Monday, have a great weekend. Rest of your week. Stay safe, and we'll talk soon.
Talk soon. Thank you so much.
Bye.
We are.
All right, who's taking us home?